Hi, this is Kerry Duke, and we have another great interview lined up in the Virtual Summit series. Tyler Jorgenson, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me out.
Man, I am so tickled pink to be able to talk to you today. I know you're a Two Comma Club Award winner. Uh, Tell us what you're doing today and how you won that award.
Absolutely. So those aren't always necessarily the same thing.
No, they're
But
not.
yeah, but my background is in physical products. I create and launch products and have been doing that for the past 10 years or so. And really, since I was a kid coming up with products and ideas and things to sell in order to meet my goals, right? And make money. Growing up, I always had to come up with my own ways to get paid, right? I didn't get an allowance. I didn't get any of that kind of stuff. So for me, it was always about coming up with the offer, coming up with and for some reason that was always product. And so over the past 10 years, I've been doing a lot of e-commerce. And one of the things I noticed in the physical product world is I was in a lot of the health and wellness space, and I just didn't feel good about selling continuity programs on weight loss type products because it seemed counterintuitive. If it works, then they don't need it every single month, right? Like they're going to reach their goal and that sort of a thing. So what we did was we created this really cool program called the National Wellness Club that gives people health and wellness program access as well as rewards and dining and shopping and travel rewards and all these other things to where people can have all these benefits and rewards, but without having to receive additional products. And we're able to add that into the back of our funnel and massively drive up the lifetime value of the customer. And then the way that we were really able to leverage that is to take that same offer to a bunch of other people that were having a similar challenge of increasing their average order value and put that behind their offer. And so we were able to make it kind of a B2B play, and that's how we won the award.
Oh, very nice. I love the continuity that's not based on a product. I mean that's a really unique concept.
Yeah, it's pretty common in the ClickFunnels world where people are building information and products and membership products and things like that. And so I knew that we wanted to have something that created monthly recurring revenue, but we didn't want to have to worry about, did they still need the product? Are we going to get returns if they got an auto ship? And so we really built it with a ton of value to where they receive 24-hour nurse hotline, and they get, every month they get $100 of shopping dollars deposited into their account. So it's a really high value play, which makes it for an easy upsell.
The shopping dollars that you give away are to buy your own products?
No, they get a whole catalog of mainstream brands, and they
Oh,
get to
okay.
use them to get discounts on those brands or travel or shopping and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, all right. So you do some other things. I know that you're in that product, the e-commerce side of things, and the what we're centrally interested in this conversation is about your use of stories. How I know you're really you have to be really good at creating offers to get people to move on those e-com products. But how do you get inside the head of your prospect in order to create that offer and get the copy for those pages?
I think at the core of any offer, any really good offer, is the narrative around that offer. So, like for example, if we're selling a diet or weight loss product, we're not just telling someone, "Hey, this is how you can lose weight," because that they've heard that narrative 100 times, right? But we're selling the narrative and helping the prospect understand that this is how they can create their future self, the future self that they really want, that they've always wanted, that they truly desire. And so you can do that through directly through like a long form story of this was my path, and this was the challenges I faced, and this is how I overcame them. And that's one of the most common stories told in diet and weight loss, and really in biz op and anything like that. You see people saying, this was the challenge that I experienced. This is how I overcame it. This is how you can overcome it too, right?
That's the
And so
traditional Russell Brunson hero journey.
that's it. And so, to me, even if it's a simple as a better product description, when we're building out massive e-commerce sites, and we're building out a bunch of them, one of the things that we look at is we say, okay, hey, we've got to have, even on a physical product site, even on just making sure there are good testimonials on the website, that's part of the story, right? Because you're connecting the dots for the prospective buyer to see the story of others, and that's what happens in physical products that a little bit differently than in some of the other verticals in marketing and sales, right? Is we're oftentimes aggregating the stories of our customers.
Well, I think you should be. I mean, I see a lot of pages, websites, and things like that. And one of the biggest mistakes that I always see is that the testimonials have very little information in them. It's just a picture of a person and wow, great job. Okay, why are you using that? Because it doesn't advance the, the conversation in your prospect's head in terms of buying that product or using their services or anything like that.
Sure. If you look at some of the trends happening right now, videos are so popular in marketing and in product sales right now because they tell that story better and faster, right? And it's visual because so many times people are scrolling through Facebook and they don't want to stop and listen to a story or read, but they'll watch a quick video of a product being used, and if it catches their eye, then they'll dive in more. And so in the e-com world, there's a lot of story segments. There's a lot of chapters of a single story that you end up telling, right? And if they read the first chapter, then you give them more.
Yeah, the Old Spice was a pretty good use of that story when they had that fellow with the horse.
Right.
Right. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what does that guy have to do with Old Spice in the products that they're selling? Literally nothing. But it got people talking about their product.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the implication was that this sophisticated, humorous, good-looking guy, that if you use Old Spice, you'd become more like him, right? And they didn't, I think they even actually said it tongue-in-cheek, but that's the connection that people make in physical products to the storyteller, right? And that's why, when you start looking at ideas of branding and ideas of imagery and all those things, at the core of all of that is what is the emotional connection and the emotional response that the potential customer, you want them to experience, and then are they experiencing that through the story you're currently telling?
When your prospects come to you, I know you do some work for other people. When those prospects come to you, how do you have that conversation? Not about what they want, but about what their customers want? I mean, are you doing research? Are you doing ask campaigns? I mean, how do you dive down and figure out what is that emotional connection that we can make with this product? Because I think that's a hard thing for most people.
Well, it can be, and I think usually that gets harder when people are married to the product and to the features of their product. When they, especially in the supplement world, they'll tell me, well, we have the best ingredients, and we have the, and they go into all this like scientific stuff about why their ingredients are better and their formula is better, and how, or they'll go and they'll brag about their packaging and their branding, and they'll say, yeah, but we use this cooler bottle and our labels have a foil, logo. And I'll tell you what,
my eyes are glazing over right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's, one of the 2 Comma X Club winners, and I did a project a while ago, and we did $100,000 of product in the first month, and had never even like tasted or seen the product. And it's because the thing that mattered wasn't the product as much as being able to properly communicate the story and the benefits and how their people's lives are going to get better if they take this next step. And so, Russell's so great at teaching, the difference between the opportunity stack and the opportunity switch and all those things. And so I think to answer your earlier question, it really comes down to just knowing, does the person that the prospect that I'm working with, do they understand the story of their product? Because if not, that's where we need to start, right? And sometimes it's their own personal story. In fact, a lot of times it's their own personal story that we have to uncover is, okay, why did you start this product? Because usually there's some kind of a connection there. And then if we can bring that out, then usually that they become the reluctant hero, or we get somebody else to kind of be that face so that people can connect to that story.
I've heard that repeatedly through this virtual summit. That initial excuse me, that initial story was their own, and that's what drove them to have that product or that service that created that opportunity. Now I will say that there was one fella that they had their family origin story, and then they changed it, and when they changed it, they worked really hard on that story. They had an 800% increase in sales. Through
Interesting. Yeah,
through changing the story. So it's like, okay, so we start off with a story that's our origin story. Great, all right, let's get that success, but let's not hold ourselves to that same story forever.
Well, and I think there's a book called I think it's called Sacred Cows Make the Best Hamburgers, something like that. And I think sometimes we get married to parts of our marketing or parts of our story or parts of our company. And in the end, we have to recognize that, if the customers and serving them has to be the greatest of the sacred cows, meaning we have to be willing to sacrifice our own image of ourselves. We have to be able to, tell the story in a way that is different than we're used to. We have to be willing to make those types of changes so that we can actually, get to more people and help more people.
Fascinating, because you know what? I had a conversation with a guy who had to do that. He had to overcome his own inner struggle, and that inner struggle was changing his perception of who he was and be more relatable to his clients.
Yeah, I think that's a very common challenge for entrepreneurs, especially in the ClickFunnels world, where the entrepreneur tends to kind of be at the forefront of their company, really, and be either the face of or the spokesperson of their own company. It becoming vulnerable and being able to talk openly about the challenges is not natural for a lot of people. It's something they have to practice and get used to, and it's can be hard for people to do.
Well, I think that's right. And when we start talking about how do you become successful and how do you create those stories, I think that one of the biggest issues is that people don't work on them. If I were to ask you, hey Tyler, what's your best suggestion for people who haven't reached that level of success yet? Would you talk to them about mentorship and maybe working on that story on a frequent basis until they get it right?
Yeah, I think mentorship is great. I really do, and so I'm not going to talk down on that. I just think sometimes people are looking for the wrong mentor, right? So they think, oh, I want to be successful in something, so I'm just going to go try to find the person that's best, and that might be perfect, but they may be so far away that you kind of need like intermediate mentors, right? So, for example, like where Russell Brunson's like inner circle is right now, it doesn't make sense for someone who's just getting started in their business to drop that amount of cash to join, right? And which is why he's built other programs in between, right? And so there's two coaching and there's things like that make more sense, because you got to start at the beginning and figure out the basics. So to answer your question more, kind of about should they practice their stories, they first have to define what even is their business, right? Like, because What stories need to be told are completely different based on what the business actually is, and what the offer is going to be. And so getting a deep understanding of your customers, your niche and your sub niche, all of these different things, and then figuring out your stories. Now, some people just need to practice storytelling, and that doesn't even necessarily mean it's going to be the stories they tell for their business. And for that, I remember I was talking with Garrett J. White after Funnel Hacking Live 3 years ago, and he was just basically saying, look, every single day, publish a podcast. He's like, every single day, just record it and send it out. And he's like, it's not even about who listens. He's like, it's just that every single day you'll practice telling the story. And eventually, he's like, and you're going to suck. But eventually you'll suck less. And then eventually you'll be decent. And then eventually, when it comes time to tell the right story, you'll have improved your craft. And so, the advice is different, I think, depending where people are in the stage, right? If they have a really clear crystal, they know what their business is, they know what their objectives are, then they can hire a coach or a mentor to really help them connect those last few dots. But if somebody's really early on, just figuring out where they're going to start, then sometimes it's just practicing the fundamentals, even if it doesn't end up relating to that business directly, right? It's just being out there practicing.
As Stephen Larson would say, you have to get the mat time in.
Yeah. He has done so well the last few years, just how quickly he's grown. I love it.
Oh, he's phenomenal. He will be a special guest here in a week or so. But yeah. Well, Tyler, this has been fascinating. I like the deep dive into the mentality of how you define what your business is. It's an interesting starting point. I think I see so many people in the ClickFunnels community, and it's like they're asking the wrong question. It's like, well, what product should I sell?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who are you? What is your desire? What do you want to do? It's like, get the right question that answered first.
Yeah. The question of what kind of funnel should I use for this? And it's like, well, for this business, I'll see somebody say, and it especially drives me crazy if they're like, hey, I just got a new client. What kind of funnel should I use for them? And I'm like, how are you selling any kind of service if you don't already have that answer? But and that's a whole other conversation of when is the time to charge a premium and when is the time to just do apprentice type work, and that's a whole other thing. But I have I've settled on two rules where it's either free or full price, because I found anytime there's a discount or something like that, it just ends up backfiring. And so if I'm not ready yet, then it's free and we'll do it together and we'll learn together. But if I'm some of the specialists, pay them the right amount.
Yeah.
And so,
very good.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of times people are asking the wrong questions in general, just because they don't know, right? And so they're thinking that the right place to start is to opening up the ClickFunnels editor and getting started. But really, they have to go through all of the other steps first. I mean, and Russell's books are so phenomenally good at helping people start at the beginning. They just sometimes finish the book and then want to start at the end. So it's like, no, start at the beginning, work through it, figure out the business, and be totally okay with cycling through a few ideas. If you're just getting started, there's nothing wrong with testing something out for a month and saying, no, this wasn't my path, end it and move forward. That's way better than sitting on 3 or 4 ideas that never get tested.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, I love Russell's books. I love, his storytelling mentor, Michael Haig. And they say the same thing. It's like, you're not going to get better unless you start. And then once you start, then you have to practice to get better. I mean, it's the same story.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Tyler, appreciate your time. I want to kind of chop it off right there. Great stopping point.
Sure.
Are you open to being contacted? If so, where can people reach out and find you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want, so I have a weekly radio show on ABC News that goes on to podcast. You can learn more about that at bizninja.com. And then if you're looking into physical products and accelerating that path for yourself, tylerjorgenson.com.